I come from a tropical land where winter and heating is non-existent. During my first winter in Germany, I realized how important a heating system is. And no, I'm not talking about these AC units that also warm up air, but a proper central heating system. Luckily for us, every household in Germany has one of them. And today, Ivan is going to give us a masterclass on how all of this works. In this video, we will cover, Ivan will cover the following topics. The heating period in Germany, the minimum temperature your apartment should have according to the German law. It's a German law, right?
Yeah.
I should remove the German law.
Yeah.
Okay. The heating period in Germany, the minimum temperature your apartment should have, the different heating types, how to operate your heating system, and how to avoid mold. Before this episode starts, we have a small favor to ask from you. Our goal for this year is to reach 50,000 YouTube subscribers. If you've ever liked any of our videos, if you like this channel, then please hit that subscribe button that's down here at the bottom.
The bigger the channel, the bigger the reach, and the more internationals can benefit from our content to settle into life in Germany more smoothly. Thank you very much and enjoy this episode.
The unofficial heating period in Germany starts from October 1st until April 30th. However, depending on how the weather develops, it can start earlier, September, and it can also finish later around May.
Yeah, or start later and finish earlier. It highly depends on the climate.
So what do we mean by unofficial heating period?
It means that there is no real law stating this is a time of the year that you need to heat. It is more or less defined because it's anchored in a lot of rental contracts, and there have been quite a few verdicts in court about this period when it was kind of like defined. There's pretty much two angles to look at this. The landlord's perspective. The landlord needs to provide and needs to make sure that if you do want to operate your heaters in your apartment, they actually work. And that typically means that the central heating system, which is usually located in the basement, is operable and turned on during this period. From the tenant's perspective, that means that you are responsible to keep the temperature indoors in your apartment or home to a certain limit, to a certain degree, to avoid from mold to grow.
An important thing to point out here is that you only pay what you consume, not because the heating period is from October until April, officially or unofficially. That means that you pay for heating throughout all these months. It means that the moment you turn on your heaters, that's when you start kind of like paying or consuming the heating cost. And that is how you're going to be billed. Another thing is that you are not forced to turn on the heaters during this heating period time. For example, this year we only turned on our heaters on October 15th or so because that's when the temperatures dropped and we actually felt cold at home. So our rule of thumb is that when we are chilly at home, we turn on the heaters.
As an example, we have friends in Düsseldorf who have never turned on their heaters because for whatever reason in their house, they live on the top floor and they are very snuggled in, so they actually don't really have many sides open to the nature and winds in that sense. Their apartment doesn't cool off. So, I mean, we've been there in winter and it's always, I would say, a cozy 20 degrees without heating. So that's very unique, I would say. And that is just to underline, as a tenant, you are not forced to turn on your heaters. However, you are responsible to maintain the apartment. And if there are repercussions because you did not heat and the apartment was too cold and humid and there is mold, you are liable to fix that. So trying to save on heating costs can backfire if you do then actually put the apartment in danger of mold.
Yes, so the question is, what are the official temperatures that your apartment should have? So let's go into them. During daytime, all your living area should have at least 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The baths and toilets need to have at least 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. During nighttime, it's different, and the minimum temperature needs to be 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, during nighttime, it's a very interesting thing because the heaters automatically cool off, so they kind of like shut down for a few hours. So kind of like automatically the temperature drops.
So these are the temperatures you should maintain as a tenant, just again to upkeep the infrastructure of the apartment. But these are also by law the minimum temperatures your heating system needs to be able to provide. So in case your apartment does not get that warm, then you actually have a real reason to complain to your landlord and ask them to fix that.
And how do you know how warm your apartment is, for example?
So we use a thermostat and a hygrometer, I think that's how you pronounce it, which we have bought on Amazon. It's a little thing. We actually have this in every room. I think because of Simple Germany, I get obsessed with topics and now want to control the temperature and humidity in every room. And this shows us how warm it is. It's not 100% accurate, but good enough to have a ballpark figure, and how humid it is, which is amazing, which we'll talk later in the video, to control also your ventilation schedule.
Yes. Do we talk later in the video how much is the minimum humidity?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Also, here's super cool. You have a happy face or a sad face or a serious face when it's not proper.
To tell you that the climate is good or not.
Yeah.
We can leave a description, a link of this in the description below.
So what are the different types of heating in Germany?
Typically there is two different types in German households. One, the radiator, in German that's Heizkörper, and they are in every room and you can control the temperature individually per room with those. And second would be the underfloor heating, which you don't see because it's under the floor. And it is a little bit more efficient and of course aesthetic compared to the traditional radiator. And the underfloor heating is called Fußbodenheizung.
Also, I would say with the Fußbodenheizung, you have more kind of like livable square meters because a radiator usually takes a few like space from the wall. So that is also another pro maybe for the underfloor heating. So how do you operate the heaters?
It's typically very straightforward, but if you've never heated in your life, let's explain this briefly. So the radiator on one side has a valve and on the other side has a thermostat, a white knob with numbers on it, and you really just turn on the knob to the desired number.
However, the number, what is the number? Just because I turn it to the fifth doesn't mean that I'm gonna get super, like what does the number mean?
Very good question, because the numbers do not tell you anything really if you don't know. So each number on the thermostat of your radiator stands for target temperature. The snowflake stands for 7 degrees Celsius or 44.6 degrees Fahrenheit and prevents the pipes from freezing. So never put it below the snowflake in winter if you don't want to heat a room. 1 stands for 12 degrees Celsius or 53.6 degrees Fahrenheit. 2 stands for 16 degrees Celsius or 60.8 degrees Fahrenheit. 3 stands for 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. 4 stands for 24 degrees Celsius or 75.2 degrees Fahrenheit. And 5 stands for 28 degrees Celsius or 82.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Each line between the numbers represents 1 degree, which equals 33.8 Fahrenheit.
So then theoretically you would need to have your heaters at around 2.2, 2.3, maybe 3 to reach those minimum temperatures that we talked about at the beginning of the video.
Correct, yes. Again, it depends a little bit on the apartment. Like I said, we have friends who never heat and they still reach the temperature. So you need to feel your apartment or your house a little bit. But generally speaking, 3 is the most common number to use because it represents 20 degrees, which again is the comfy temperature to live in, what should be and should be the case for you to feel comfy and should be the case for you to avoid mold. So that is typically what people do. And here it's very important to know, because the numbers represent temperatures, they don't represent how fast the heating or the temperature is reached. So if you do put your radiator onto a 4 or 5, it does not mean that the room gets warm faster. It just means that the radiator will keep on heating longer and possibly overheat, because it will only stop if it reaches, for example, if it's on 5, 28 degrees, wow. Which, who wants to live in 28 degrees? And that means it pretty much will keep on running the entire time. It will not stop until it reaches that, and that will cause most likely overheating and will be very expensive. And usually, if you put it on 3, it reaches 20 degrees, it will stop heating more or less. This is very simplified now, until it senses like, oh, it's dropping a little bit, let me heat up again, so it maintains the temperature.
Now, very important with radiators is that the thermostat will only be able to detect the room temperature if it's free, if it's not blocked. So please try to avoid putting couches or very thick curtains or any kind of like furniture in front of the radiator, because that will just prevent it from reading the correct temperature. And again, it will make it more expensive because the thing is going to be whacked and doesn't know how warm it is and how not.
Yeah, not just it doesn't know, but also the warm air that is produced from the
It will
radiator
just stay.
cannot go into the room.
Yeah. So during winter, I realized once that the radiator was not working. It wasn't getting warm. And sometimes it would have this like gurgling sounds on it. And it was only until I moved in with Yvonne and we had our first winter together that I realized, oh my God, there is a solution for this. And that is bleeding the radiator is called. And it's a super simple thing that you can do at any time. It only takes 2 minutes, and that actually kind of, let's say, resets the radiator so it can work properly again.
It doesn't really reset it, but it just helps it to work properly. So the scenario Jen just described is quite common, and it pretty much means that the radiator is filled with some air. And since the whole warming process functions through water, if there's air in the radiator, then the water cannot go through it, hence it cannot really heat effectively. So we need to get rid of that air, and that means we need to bleed it. We need to let the air out. And to bleed the radiator, you need two things. A key, a Heizungsschlüssel, or like a radiator key, which you can get in the Baumarkt or at Amazon, and a tissue paper to collect the water that's going to come out. So you place the key on the valve and you twist it a little bit until you hear a hissing sound, which is the air coming out. And you literally leave it there until water starts to either drip or pour out of that valve, which you catch with a paper. And that means in this moment, all air is out. You close the valve again, and that's it. Typically, we do this at the beginning of winter when we turn them on for the first time, or when I kind of feel, hey, the radiator's on, it's not really warm. I touch it and I feel it's not as warm as it should be, and then I de-air it. And again, if there's air coming out, that means, yep, I used to do that. I needed to do that. Depending on your apartment, you need to do that every third day. In the old apartment, we need to do that every third day.
Yeah.
In new apartments, it really depends. Again, you got to feel your radiator. Now, when it comes to underfloor heating, the process is more or less similar. You also have a thermostat with numbers, either also 1 to 5, sometimes actually with the real room temperature on it, so that depends. And you can usually find a thermostat on the wall, usually like on chest or eye side, next to the door that enters the room.
And just like with radiators, are you able to turn on the underfloor heating per room? Or
Yes.
it's just one for the whole house?
No. Each room has one. So whenever you enter the room through the door, you can look to your left or the right, depending on where the door is. And you will usually find this thermostat and you can turn it on individually. Now, the thing with underfloor heating it takes longer to heat up and it takes longer to cool down. So it's not as reactive as radiators are. So if you want it to be cold tomorrow, you should probably, if you want it to be warm tomorrow, you should probably turn it on today. And there's 3 different types of underfloor heating. There is one with water, with infrared panels, and with electrical panels. If it is operated by water, it does require bleeding every once in a while, by far not as often as radiators. And the bleeding process is quite more complex, and from my research it showed that you shouldn't do that yourself, but rather speak to your landlord or an expert for them to do that.
Now to a really big question is how to avoid mold in apartments in Germany.
Now, mold in houses typically happens due to 2 factors: too much humidity and too cool temperatures. So the temperature you control with your heating, and humidity has different factors that impact it. One is how many people are in a room, because when we breathe, we actually really produce a lot of water, a lot of moisture, which is humidity. So the more people in a room, the more humid a room. So the more airing, ventilating it needs. But also it depends on the basic structure, the fabric of the building, new versus old, and how well they're insulated. So that also plays a big role.
Also, to give you an example, if you've ever slept in a camper van or Wohnmobil, we have a mini camper, so we love to camp.
Oh, in a car in general.
Or in a car in general. When you sleep there and you wake up the next morning, all the windows are humid. So this also portrays like when we breathe out, there's a lot of humidity coming out. If you've never slept in a camper van, just imagine the Titanic scene where there's a lot of humidity in the car. Also shows that a lot of breathing in a very enclosed room produces a lot of humidity.
And in cars on the windows, you do see the moisture, and it's really like a lot of moisture. However, on walls in buildings, you don't see the moisture because it's just not visible to our eye, but it's there. And if we keep it there and don't do anything about it, that's when mold, over time, of course, can start to grow. So according to the Federal Environmental Agency in Germany, rooms that have a temperature below 16 to 18 degrees, depending on the structure and the fabric of the building, they increase the chances of mold to grow. Hence, that is why there are minimum temperatures to upkeep above those.
So here are some actions you can take to prevent mold from growing in your apartment. Number 1 is to keep those minimum temperatures that we talked about before. That is super important.
Which mainly is above 18 degrees.
Yes. Step number 2 is to ventilate your apartment, aka luften, did I say that right?
Yep.
At least 2 to 3 times a day. And to do the famous luften, it's not just I'm going to open one window here and halfway. No. You have to open the windows fully. And if you have a room that has multiple windows, open all of them. Make sure all that airflow goes in, and you can do that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending how cold it is, but at least 5 minutes. And the goal is to have the Durchzug effect, which is the breeze kind of like going through the whole room and like cleaning it and like lowering the humidity, exchanging the air. And once those 5 minutes are done with your timer, you close everything up, and then that was it.
And it's really amazing with our little hygrometers that measure the humidity in the room to see the humidity really drop when you do that. It sometimes, depending of course on the air in general, drops by 5, 10, 15 degrees in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes.
And the crazy thing about this luften thing is that every German is like engraved with this behavior. I remember when I had an office job and as a developer, we were working in this room with a lot of people. And every time at lunchtime, which would happen 30 minutes before my lunchtime, for Germans at least, there would be the typical scenario where a German stands up and before they leave, they open the windows fully. I mean, it's winter, right? And then they just leave. And here I am working in a very cold room and I'm like, okay, is this necessary at this very moment?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It is.
And this is so important. We cannot stress this enough because we've had multiple questions of how do you keep your apartment clean? And with clean, often implied is mold free because mold is usually black and that looks dirty. And the reason why I emphasize it so much is because it goes often against the counter effect what maybe in other cultures is typical. For example, in the US, in Louisiana where I lived, or in Miami where, in another company where I worked, we had a language school where people or students also sleep. They get engraved with never, ever, ever open the windows because there it's the other way around. The outside air is so humid. The inside air in the room is dry due to AC, so you should never let that humidity in. Whereas here in Germany, it's the opposite and you need to let the humidity out.
Yes, and not even that. For example, in Guatemala, one of the reasons why you never open the windows as well is because of the pollution. If you live in the city, there's a lot of pollution, especially from public buses and stuff like that. They don't have tooth. And if you and you would never open that because all that smog also enters and it just makes your apartment even dirtier. But then again, we don't have heating and winter and stuff like that, right?
So next to the typical 2 to 3 times a day regular luften in regular rooms, there is 2 things to point out, or 3. One, when you cook, more moisture gets created. So if you have a single kitchen or like a kitchen dining room, after cooking, also open the windows for at least 10 minutes to get that air exchanging. After taking a shower or a bath, even more important, I would say showers or bathrooms are the most prone rooms to create mold. There it takes up to 20 minutes to ventilate if you have a window. If you don't have a window, you usually have a fan and you should keep that fan running. And also what I learned through the research actually is to keep all doors closed within the apartment because you don't want humid air from a warm room to go into a cooler room because there the chances of mold are higher to increase then.
Another thing is when you're air drying your clothes in your apartment, it's also super important to open all the windows for multiple times a day because the wet clothes create even more humidity and in winter it just is more prone to also create mold.
One more thing about airing, I promise, and then we're done with it, is some modern houses, typically houses, I've never seen it in an apartment, they have an integrated built-in ventilation system. So then typically next to, let's say, the thermostat, it's usually combined with underfloor heating. You have a propeller kind of sign and you can, pretty much just say how strong the ventilation in the house should be, which takes care of it. You typically would not need to open your windows anymore. But you, of course, still can if you'd like the feeling of fresh air.
Another important thing to point out is to not block the radiators if you have them in your apartment. If you have underfloor heating, that is fine. But the radiators, you shouldn't block them with big couches, curtains, or even cupboards. If you put a cupboard in front of a radiator, make sure to have at least, 10 centimeters of a distance between the radiator and the cupboard.
Especially on an exterior wall, because those walls are cooler than if you have a wall that faces another room. And if there is no air between the wall and the room, that is a playground for mold.
Yes, but that you mean without the radiator. So you mean directly on
Correct,
the wall.
yeah.
Yeah. So that is true. We also, in the previous apartment that we were in, the whole apartment had mold issues in general because it was pretty old. And actually a neighbor told us that they removed their closet from their bedroom, and behind that closet, because it was like completely touching the wall, it was full of mold.
Yeah, so minimum 10 centimeters between exterior walls and cupboards, closets, whatever.
Yeah.
And if you do want to control your humidity just like we do, experts say 40 to 60 degrees is the beautiful, the good humidity in your room when it's healthy and all safe in that sense. And from 70% onwards, then chances for mold again are super high.
Wow, that was a lot about mold and mold and mold. I keep on hearing, and heating. However, once you've nailed that, it's an automatic process. Don't think it's so complicated. It just happens automatically. If you would like to know how to prepare mentally for winter, then make sure to click on the video here on the left. Until next time, cheers! Here for the 50K ad, we can say, and how to avoid mold. Whoosh. I'm kidding.
Like, what's going on with you?
Okay, I'm preparing for not speaking in this video.
So you're overcompensating?
Yeah, okay.
I'm already having my piggy eyes again.
No, Conchita, don't start.